Hi, everybody. I've learned a few lessons, and I think that they're worth sharing. As a widow, I've learned them exquisitely, painfully, to be true. I once asked a friend of mine to describe the color purple to me, but without comparing it to anything else that's purple, without associating it with like something like a good memory, or like I think of purple when I think of my day at the carnival or something like that, or my whatever, right? And not to uh, relate it to any other thing that's purple. How would you describe the color purple? Not comparing it to another color. He said he couldn't. And I said, neither can I. But I know purple when I see it. In the same instance, love is indefinable. It's indefinite. Doesn't mean that it's not there. It just means that it can't be defined. But you can tell what love is from what it's not. And so you have to ask yourself, what is the opposite of love? The opposite of love, according to Hillary Clinton in 2016, I think, yes, was hate. I disagree, Mrs. Clinton. Hate is not the opposite of love. Hate is the absence of love. In order for there to be an opposite, there must actually have an opposite. The absence of something is not a thing. In this instance, at least. Hate is the absence of love. The opposite of love is not anger. The opposite of love is certainly not anger, because anger is love expressed very poorly. I sometimes might even get angry at this one when he eats plastic and he shouldn't, like plastic bags. I get angry at him for a second. That's a very poor frustration of love. But doesn't mean I don't love him. The opposite of love is, in fact, it means in that instance I'm trying to help him. The opposite of love is not fear. Sorry, Donnie Darko. The opposite of fear is courage and fearlessness. No, the opposite of love is certainly grief. It's the other side of a coin. If you have loved truly in your life, and good for you if you have, then eventually either you or your partner will pay for that love and grief. One for the other. Grief is the price that we pay for love, Queen Elizabeth II says, and she's right. Grief is the opposite of love. It's the other side of that coin. Comedy and tragedy. It wasn't comedy and horror. There were the two masks of theater. It's comedy and tragedy. But what that tells us, however, is that love is actually very supernatural. Truly supernatural. In the very real sense of the word. An emanation from a very supernatural source. And in science, we know that two equal forces will cancel each other out, positive and negative. A thesis and an antithesis. But not in the case of love and its opposite. Love and its opposite don't cancel each other out. Instead, love overpowers it. My Jaren, I will mourn him for the rest of my life, but I won't grieve him forever. Especially not with this one around. Our son here. In kitty form, but he's still our son. grief gets weaker over time, I'm told. Evidence yet to be seen. But love certainly gets stronger with absence and over time. And so that means love overpowers its opposite. Unlike other forces, love overcomes. If you have loved truly, you'll eventually grieve, or someone will grieve for you. True love is the most powerful magic under God that there is. It can do anything. It can achieve even wonderful, supernatural, even paranormal feats. But in order to learn what true love is, you have to know what true loss is. You don't really see what you have in the moment. Most of you, anyway. You get so caught up in that minutia of your argument with your partner that you forget that you love each other for a minute. Don't ever do that. Take it from me. Repeat these words. I love you more than I care about this. Whenever I have a fight, say them. Don't forget that bit. That bit's important. Yeah, even he agrees. Say that. Don't ever forget that. I love you more than I care about this. Remind each other. Whenever you can. Whenever you have a fight. I love you more than I care about this. And ask yourself this question routinely, and take stock in your life of who fits this bill. If something were to ever, God forbid, befall you, and it was in some way unjust or unfair, or it gave you a legacy that was not fun, who in your life loves you enough that he would fight for the honor of your ghost? Who loves you enough that he would keep on swinging long after everyone else has stopped? Who loves you enough that he would keep on swinging alone with everyone else having given up, or given up even on him, with perhaps even real danger or reputation at stake, with real consequences? And he would keep on going, doing right for right's own sake. Even if he didn't have to, especially if he didn't have to. Whoever that person is, hold on to him in your life. If you don't know who that person is, I wouldn't be surprised. Not many of us do. In fact, it might even be the person we least expect. I loved Jaren very imperfectly. But I loved him truly. And you don't exactly know it's true love until some awfulness happens. And you learn it's true love, but then the sad part of true love is that it's always sad. True love is always sad. True love's kiss is so magical in fairy tales because it seems, at least in my experience, to be almost a near impossibility. It's so rare. I think maybe that's why the true love's kiss would bring someone back from the dead, or wake them up from a death-like sleep. Because the only way that you actually know it's true love is when one of them is gone. I wonder, there's a fly in here, it's bugging me. I wonder, though, what true love's kiss would actually do. Sometimes, that's how powerful it is. It makes you wonder, and for a moment, all possibilities are open. Maybe. I think the most important thing that we can do in life is as much good as we can. And if we're lucky, that good will outlast us. People might even remember us for it. I said once to a group of people I was talking to, one day, all you're going to be is a story. To some people, a legacy, a story to tell. What are they going to say of you? And that one day, no matter how jaded you might be, no matter how cynical you might be, no matter how in the moment you might live, I guarantee you that one day how much good you do in this world will be the only thing that matters to you. Maybe it'll have a person attached to it too. And when that day comes, you'll realize that I think some things in life are not defining moments, sorry Barack Obama, but moments of hinging upon which everything depends. And do you run in that moment? Do you hide? Do you cry? Do you break down? Do you step up? Do you do your duty even if it's hard? Even if you have no benefit to you? Even if it's of literally no benefit to you? Do you still do your duty to that person? At all costs? If the answer is yes, then that is love. That is, love is real. As love is real as you are. Love is itself an act of faith. With apologies to every irreligious person out there, if you love somebody, that's an act of faith. It's an act of faith. It's faith that you have that they love you back. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's all a scheme, a scam. Maybe they're just using you. Maybe they're just getting a laugh out of you. Or maybe they actually do love you. How do you know? You can see it in their eyes. It's not so much a sparkle. It's something else. Not a dark light, but the light of love. The amazing thing about some things that we see, kind of like a scent, will bring back a memory. I think there's a moment that might come for some people who are very lucky to have one, just like this, or maybe something similar to it. You might see a sight so beautiful. Maybe with a person, maybe not with a person, maybe cat. Or maybe just out of thin air, it'll just appear. A sight so beautiful that you'll think about that sight every single day. Afterward, you'll long to see it again so badly it hurts. You'll look at that sight and your memory is holy. A sight so fantastic you'd have to pinch yourself to make sure you weren't dreaming. A sight so beautiful that your soul vibrates when it sees it. That's maybe the moment that you realize you have a soul. You may not see your soul, maybe you can, but you feel it. You literally feel it vibrating inside of you. Ringing, reacting to this sight that's in front of it, because it recognizes it. And maybe a moment or two later you might even have some sort of moment of clarity when you just remember. You might just say, I remember who I am. I remember everything. I understand now. How could I have ever forgotten? Make sure that life never gets you so bogged down if you're so gracious and so graced to have a moment like that. You never get so bogged down in the he said, she said, or the or in the games of other people. Make sure you never get so bogged down that you forget about that moment. A moment of love. Because I've been so graced to have a moment like that. The closest thing I can think about that moment is the sensation of having love at first sight, but being true love at first sight. A near impossibility. Some might even say an impossibility. But I am so lucky to know that it's not impossible. Improbable, maybe, but not impossible. Fight for true love. It's always right. If your love is harming no other, exploiting no other, if your love is not selfish, if it's true love, even if it's unrequited. In a lot of ways, love doesn't take two people. But it does. But it doesn't. But it does. But in a lot of ways, an act of unrequited love is still an act of love. If it's selfless, if it's harmless, if it's for the greater good. This is perhaps the most selfless thing I've ever done in my entire life. Fighting for justice for Jaren. And it just makes me realize how lucky I am. The luckiest man, the richest man in the world I was. For longer than a minute, but much longer. The richest man in the world. I didn't even know it. Because for even just a second, I loved him. I had the privilege that he loved me back. I love you, Jared. I miss you every day. When you feel love like that, then you have a cause worth dying for. But if you ever have a cause worth dying for, I have a cat hair on my face now. If you have a cause worth dying for, that necessarily creates something else that's more important than that. It means you have a cause worth living for. He agrees. But one thing, when love is under danger from forces that are very much not loving, love always fights back. And as Winston Churchill, who felt so many types of love in his life, as he once said, never give in to those awful forces. Never, 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 never. In nothing great or small or large or petty, never give in. Give in to convictions of honor. Give in to convictions of good sense. But never give in even to if the enemy's might is overwhelming and you're outnumbered and you're alone. Even if it looks like you're going unto your end. Never give in. Never surrender. That's love. Love will always prevail.